Alright, without further ado, let's look at these Pokemon. I will be just looking at previously returning Pokemon first, and then we will go into a spoiler section, which I will very much explain, but we will be looking at the non-spoilers first. Alright, so we've got Armarouge and Cerulean, whatever, I'll learn them later. Both these Pokemon look like they're just okay. I feel like the Violet exclusive one is going to be much better. I think a faster Ghost Fire type is just better than a defensive Fire Psychic type. I just feel like you get more out of the other one. Not to mention that the other one beats the other one, but that's beside the point. I feel like the Violet one is just far superior in every way. We got a Rangaroo and Passimian. I think a Rangaroo actually looks like it could be pretty spicy in this current meta that we're about to go into, just because I think the Terra moves are really strong. And if a Rangaroo's Instruct does work with Terra moves, then this Pokemon will be actually really, really good, I think. I think it'll be a decent Trick Room setter, and it will just power up the likes of Torkoal or whatever you're using as your Terramon. Passivia is always just okay. It gets access to Defiant, which is pretty cool, but I don't know. I don't think it's that great. We got Stormjourner and Ice-Cube. I think Stormjourner is far superior in every way. I think it's actually a really cool mon. Its ability is really neat, and so I think I gotta give this one the Violet once again. Drifloon versus Mismagius. Huge Drifloon game here. I think Drifloon is actually a really, really good Pokemon. Ever since the induction of Terrains plus Unburden plus the seeds that get procced when you sit on a terrain, Drifloon has been a fantastic Pokemon, and a Pokemon that has been pretty solid overall, I would say. To get access to Tailwind, Will-O-Wisp, Shadow Ball. It can be very annoying and obnoxious. It gets Haze. It gets all sorts of moves. Memento, if you really want to get extra spicy. But it is basically a really good Trick Room setup mon, just because it does have access to Unburden instantly. So it's basically like having a Prankster Tailwind. But yeah, I think Drifloon is just way better than Mismagius. I don't have anything good to say about Mismagius. I don't know. Skuntank and Swalot, I think that both are pretty bad, so not much to say there. Alright, so we've got Tyranitar, Salamence. Tyranitar, I think, has really, really good, really good potential here. I think Tyranitar is always pretty good at stopping other weathers and being obnoxious, and I expect other weathers to be pretty good, specifically Sun. But I do think that Rain will be strong as well, so Tyranitar is great at shutting those down. It looks like it's great with Terra typing too, so I think Tyranitar takes a little bit of an edge here, but I also think Salamence is a great Pokemon. It gets access to Intimidate. It's super obnoxious. Early on, we often see it Scarfed, and it just spams Draco Meteor, so I don't know. I think Salamence could be a good Terra option as well, especially because it gets access to a really strong flying move now, in the form of Terra Blast if you do Terra it. So I do think Salamence could be pretty good. I don't know. I feel like same with like Hydreigon versus Dragapult. Like both mons are really, really good. I think Dragapult is really interesting because a lot of the time we saw it, it had access to Dynamax, and it seemed like Dynamax was designed for Dragapult, and we saw it find a lot of success just spamming Max Phantasms and Wormwinds and just being obnoxious and spamming Airstream. But now it doesn't get access to those tools, so we'll have to wait and see how it adapts. Obviously, we played a format where there was no Dynamax in the Spike Myth tournament, Spike Myth series, but Dragapult was very good in that. It had a lot of options, Dragon Dance sets, spamming Phantom Force and Dragon Darts, which, isn't necessarily as strong as like spamming a Draco Meteor from Hydreigon or something, but it was finding a lot of success. I think Dragapult is a very interesting mon to look out for, and I'm kind of excited to see what it can do in a non-Dynamax format. Next up, we got Hydreigon. I think Hydreigon has a really good niche here, just because I think it is going to synergize incredibly well with Terra. You can change it to a Steel type, a Poison type, Electric, whatever you want, and you can just be really obnoxious because you do retain those Dark and Dragon stabs, which I think is great, but you can also defensively change and find yourself with less weaknesses and maybe even come on top of, beating the Fairy types that normally give Hydreigon a ton of issues. So I think Hydreigon has some potential here. Dragalge and Clawitzer, I think Clawitzer's kind of cool. It has a cool ability, but I don't know how I feel about it. I don't think it's that great. Same with Dragalge, it's just like kind of okay. And now for the spoiler section. Obviously, Iron Treads and Great Tusk have been revealed, but now we're gonna go into the spoiler section. And we're gonna look at this this new gimmick. So in the new games, there is a gimmick of the past and future forms. So we have the past Pokemon and the future Pokemon. Obviously, the past Pokemon are in Scarlet and the future Pokemon are in Violet. Now, one thing to note here is that all of the past Pokemon share the same ability and all the future Pokemon share the same ability. More or less, it is when Sun is up, they get a boost to their highest stat for the past Pokemon. And when Electric Terrain is up, the future Pokemon get a boost to their highest stat. So basically, it kind of favors Scarlet Pokemon overall, just because they do have access to Sun in easier ways to get it. Obviously, we have Tapu Koko as the premier Electric Terrain setter, but Koko probably won't be in the game early on, so it will rely completely on Perturgent, which is not very good. It's not a great Pokemon. It's not really worth using. I mean, it might be worth using to power up these guys, but overall, I don't think they really get an ability. Whereas the other Pokemon, the Violet Pokemon, do get access to an ability because Torkoal is a great Pokemon. Ninetales is pretty strong too. I don't know if it's in the game, but Torkoal is. And if Torkoal is boosting these Pokemon, they get a boost to their best stat. So I think overall, I think this Violet Pokemon do take an edge here. We're going to look through each of them individually, but I do think that Violet is looking like it's winning pretty hard competitively, especially for VGC, just because at a first glance, they actually get to activate their abilities, which I think is important. Now let's take a look at all the Violet Pokemon. So we'll start with Donphan here. Donphan changes into the Great Tusk. Obviously, it has that ability. Overall, ground fighting type is not very good. Its speed stat is okay, all things considered. But I do think that it does leave a little bit to be desired. I think the speed is a little slow, which is unfortunate. The special defense is awful, but you know, in ground fighting, it's weak to Fairy, it's weak to Psychic, it's weak to a lot of special types, which isn't good. Water, Ice, like it's just weak to like having the bad special defense stat really sucks. Defensively, the typing does double down. You know, you resist rock types. You just other really primarily physical types, which is good for the defense stat. It can switch in on those really, really well. It has a very high HP stat. I do think this Mon could be pretty good. I think the speed does kind of screw it over a little bit, but we'll have to wait and see. The attack stat is great. I don't know how I feel about ground fighting. I don't know if I really want that, but we'll see. Also, all these Pokemon do have 570 as their base stats. Now let's take a look at Amoonguss. So Amoonguss over here, the Brute Bonnet, is now Grass Dark, which I think typing-wise does kind of suck. It's not great. I don't really love it, but its stats are pretty cool. The stats basically allow it to be a very bulky Pokemon. It's a little bit faster than Amoonguss, which is good, and it's a little bit bulkier overall on the defenses here, and its attack stat is vastly superior than Amoonguss. But I think the Grass Poison typing of Amoonguss will still allow Amoonguss to be probably a better Mon. It also has Regenerator. I still think OG Amoonguss will be shining here, but I do think this new Pokemon could have some use. Obviously, the attack stat's really high, but potentially what you could do is you could run enough EVs to make its special defense or defense stat higher than its attack stat, which will allow you to get a free boost if you run that item that activates your ability. So, I don't know. I think that the Brute Bonnet could be pretty good. It does seem like a more aggressive version of Amoonguss, and if it does get access to Rage Powder and Spore, it could be a pretty big threat. We'll have to wait and see. Let's keep going. So now we've got Sandy Shocks here, the Magneton version. I guess it's Magneton. Yeah. So it does again have 570 stats, which is pretty good. It's very fast. It has a high special attack stat. Electric Ground, well, not the best typing. I don't know of a good Electric Ground type off the top of my head, but I do think that it has some unique typing regardless, and the speed stat is perfect. Going over 100 is always really, really nice, and it allows you to outspeed very important threats. It allows you to outspeed a Charizard, but you outspeed a lot of Pokemon, and there's very specific ones you need to worry about. So I think having this speed could make it a very good Glass Cannon type. Its HP stat isn't bad, its defenses aren't bad, so like, I don't know. I feel like this Pokemon could be pretty decent if the typing necessitates it. So we'll have to see. Again, these are all Violet exclusives. Next up, we've got Screamtail, the Fairy Psychic Jigglypuff. It's a Jigglypuff. Stat-wise here, we're looking like it's pretty bulky. It looks like it could be a very good supportive Pokemon here, just because it has a high HP stat, pretty high defensives, but a pretty horrible attacking stats with 65 in both. So that's not great, but the speed is awesome, the special defense is awesome, and the defense is awesome. This is a very bulky Pokemon. Depending on the support moves it could get, I could see this Pokemon being very useful and very good. It really depends. I do think that Fairy Psychic is pretty good typing as well. So we'll have to wait and see what our good friend Jigglypuff can whip up support move wise, because I think that's really what it's banking on. Next up here is Flutter Mane, a Ghost Fairy type, which is pretty good typing. This is the Mischievous form. Stat-wise, it's kind of crazy. It has 135 in its speed, special attack, and special defense, and then it has 55 in everything else. So it's good at what it does. It's a very aggressive Pokemon, so I think a Glass Cannon Fairy Ghost type is pretty good, though. I think this could be a strong Pokemon. We'll have to wait and see. Now we've got ourselves a Volcarona, the last of the past mons here. So this Volcarona, by the way, is a bug fighting type, which isn't the greatest, but it's bug fighting. It's kind of weak to a lot, but its stats are pretty solid. It's got pretty good special defense, pretty good attack, pretty low defense, low speed. So I don't know how I feel about that, especially with such a vulnerable type. I feel like it needed to be really, really fast and really, really aggressive for it to be good. But this like weird mix of bulk and slowness doesn't look good for our friend here, Volcarona. Now, let's hop ourselves over and talk about the Violet exclusives here of these Paradox forms. So next up is, of course, Salaman's Roaring Moon. So these Pokemon go kind of hard. So Salaman's here goes kind of hard. So it's a Dragon Dark type, much like our good friend Hydreigon, but its stats look incredible. I'll move myself once again. So we've got a pretty beefy HP stat. 105 is pretty good. It's got a pretty strong attack. 139 is great. That's pretty incredible. That's good stuff. 71 defense is pretty bad. But the base 55 special attack is awesome because it just means the stats aren't being wasted. So it's got a pretty insane special defense stat as well, and in a pretty stellar speed. 119, you're outspeeding most Pokemon in the game. So a Dark Dragon type that is faster than Hydreigon. I mean, this sucks for Hydreigon, I'm not going to lie to you. It's another Dragon type that outspeeds you, and it's stealing your type. Oh, they do Hydreigon so dirty. But it's a very bulky, strong attacker. I mean, these stats just look incredible. I think Roaring Moon here could be the future of VGC. We'll have to wait and see. I'm fearful for this Pokemon. So next up, we got the Iron Treads here. Stat-wise, it's Ground Steel, which is, good type. It's Excadrill typing. That's good typing. Stat-wise, it's looking pretty good. We've got a good defense stat. 70 is serviceable special defense. Very fast. It's outspeeding, a lot of Pokemon. Again, I said 100 is great. This is 106. That's good. The attack stat is awesome, and it's got a pretty good HP stat. Like, this is a very bulky, strong attacker. I think this low special attack and low special defense are totally fine. Ground Steel is pretty good. Obviously, Ground Steel is weak to a lot of special attacks, water, fire, stuff of that nature. But I do think overall this could be a pretty strong Pokemon. Like, especially if Excadrill's not in the dex or Excadrill's just not as good. I mean, Excadrill obviously does have Sand Rush, which is pretty great. But, I mean, this Pokemon looks like it could be very serviceable. It's very fast. It's Ground Steel, which is great typing, so we'll have to see. And now we got the Iron Moth. Fire Poison, which isn't great typing, it's Salazzle, but got pretty good special attack stat, so it can basically come in, smack things around. It's got a high speed, high special defense. It'll be good at what it does. It's supposed to be a Glass Cannon. I don't imagine that it's going to be very bulky, but it could do a lot of damage before going down, and that's great for the Iron Moth. Next up, we got Iron Hands, the Hariyama. So I love Trick Room. I love Hariyama as well. I used Hariyama back in the day, back in 2012. I'm a big fan of Hariyama. So seeing him get a form is really cool to me. And Hariyama gets a really, really good treatment here because normal Hariyama is 474, which isn't good. It's not really great stats, but it makes Hariyama serviceable. But now it increases about almost 100, slightly less, 96 extra stat points, which are very needed and very appreciated. So now its HP stat is even thicker than a regular Hariyama. Its attack stat is 20 more, and its defense goes up by 48. That's insane. Obviously, its special attack goes up by 10, which sucks, but it even gets a little special defense, and it remains really slow. This mon, if it gets Fake Out, could be a stellar Trick Room setter-upper with Fake Out plus Trick Room. But I think overall, it could just be a good mon in general. Electric Fighting type is not the greatest. It's serviceable by every means. And I think these stats just look awesome. Like, it's perfect for Trick Room. It's going to be good at what it does. Electric Fighting sounds really obnoxious to deal with. So, I'm very hopeful for Iron Hands here. Next up is Hydreigon here. The Dark Flying Hydreigon. Let's look at these stats. 108, that's a good speed, like I've mentioned before. Special defense is okay. It's like kind of relatively bulky, and it's got a nice special attack stat, which isn't bad. The 80 attack does kind of suck because it is a little bit less optimized, but I think overall Dark Flying Hydreigon doesn't sound too bad. Depends on the moves it gets. Its speed's pretty good. Yeah, we'll have to see. I love Hydreigon, and I think this looks like it could be good. So next up is the Iron Thorns, the Tyranitar version. So Tyranitar is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. Love Tyranitar. Rock Electric is not a good type. I don't think that's a really good feature of Iron Thorns here. We'll have to look at these stats. So obviously it's a little bit worse than Tyranitar. Obviously it has to take the 30. Oh, you guys can't see. It's got to take the 30 deficit here because Tyranitar is a pseudo and these guys are all just 570. So it's got the same 3, attack, HP, and defense stats as Tyranitar, but then it loses 25 special attack, which I think is stellar. That's a good thing. And then it loses about 20 special defense, which is okay. And then it gets 72. It's a little bit faster than the regular Tyranitar. I don't know if we'll see this really used over regular Tyranitar, just because Quark Drive isn't as good as Sandstream. Sandstream is what makes Tyranitar Tyranitar. So I don't know how I feel about this Pokemon. I love Tyranitar, but I don't know if Iron Thorns is going to be it. We'll have to wait and see. Next up is a Iron Bundle here. This is Delibird. So Ice Water, Lapras typing. It's not too bad, I don't think. Let's look at these stats. Stat wise, wow. This mon could actually be good. So again, 570 as always. Insanely fast. This mon is like the fastest mon we've seen so far. It outspeeds Salamence as well, which I think is a good thing. There's a lot of dragon types in these games, so having a fast Ice Water, Ice type, could really smack things around. Insane special attacks. No, not insane, but serviceable. Bad special defense. Insane defense for no reason. And it's really just glass cannony with a good defense stat. I think that's okay. We'll have to wait and see. I think Ice Water is pretty cool typing, and I think that being an aggressive, fast Pokemon could be very strong. So I think the Iron Bundle could be used. Next up, we've got ourselves the Iron Valiant, the last mon we're going to talk about here. Fighting Fairy. This is like a Gallade Gardevoir baby. I guess that'd be a Routes, but you get my point. It's got pretty good stats. It really sucks here. So it's 590, which is actually more than normal. But so the speed is really good, but its defenses are pretty weak, and then it unfortunately has the gift of a mixed attacker. So in Pokemon, primarily you're not going to like mixed attackers because they're just not very good. They don't give you too much to your team. They usually you're just gonna focus on one stat, so you're just kind of wasting all those stat points that could be elsewhere. So it does unfortunately kind of suck. Obviously, it could really be run either way, which is cool, but I don't know if we'll see it run both ways. We'll have to wait and see. I think it could be, it's Fighting Fairy, which is very unique typing, very cool. But I don't know. I think being a mixed attacker could be the final nail in the coffin for our good friend, the Iron Valiant here, Gallade, fake Gallade. So I don't know. I think being mixed type does kind of suck. The ability is like meh, so we'll have to see. And now finally, the last version exclusives here. We've got Tauros, Paldea 2 and 3, I guess. So we've got a fire fighting one and a fighting water one. They both get access to Intimidate, which is great. Instantly makes them quite viable. Stat-wise, they're actually looking okay. 100 speed, pretty solid. A lot of these things are really fast. These Pokemon are going to be pretty solid. It's very fast. It has a horrible special attack stat, which is great. Its stats are pretty defensively, they're okay, and its attack stat is serviceable. So we'll have to see. Obviously, the fire one is for Violet, and the water one is for... Or Scarlet is the fire one, and the Violet is the water one. So I think it's just these two aren't really like a selling point to me. They're just more of an existence. So yeah, these are all the version exclusives for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Personally, it looks like Scarlet has a lot more of the meta Pokemon and the Pokemon that will be good. Obviously, there's still some greats on Violet's side, such as Salamence, Dragapult. But overall, I would probably argue that the game you should pick is Scarlet. I think Scarlet has a lot more value. We've got Oranguru, we've got Tyranitar, Hydreigon. Also, all these guys just look better than their their counterparts. So we'll have to wait and see. Also, you know, obviously these two, you get to pick which legendary you get. That's always exciting, but both look pretty promising here. Their abilities look great, and they just look like a good bundle of fun overall. And it depends which car you want to drive ultimately, right? And that's really going to be what's determining it. Do you want to have the motorcycle, or do you want the guy who runs on 4 legs? It's up to you. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. We'll be back tomorrow with another vid. I hope you guys like, comment, subscribe. It helps me out a ton. And I hope you guys have a great, amazing day. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Personally, I got to go with Scarlet. I was all Violet all the way, but now I'm switching to Scarlet 2 days before the game comes out, and that's going to be my game, and that's going to be the one I play. So we'll wait and see. I did buy both, but I'm going to play Scarlet primarily. But thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. Helps me out a ton. I'll see you guys next time.